The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, we were born to be alive. I got half alive. And welcome to my listeners. If you'd like to join the chat, go to w4cy.com and click on the link on the side. You're listening to Until Now with Rosie Pekar. And yes, you've probably picked up there's a little bit of an accent. I am Australian, and I look forward to talking with ordinary people about extraordinary experiences. However, today I've dedicated this particular episode to the top 3 lessons as I've learnt and understood them, thanks to the Masters of the Far East, for successful life, for easy life, for joyful life. If you've got some top tips and you'd like to share them, by all means, go ahead, because there's not one of us that has all the answers, and there is not one of us that can stand before us as the expert for every individual living, because we all come from so many varied backgrounds, experiences, cultures, lifestyles, and that is the beauty of life, that there may not be a one-size-fit-all approach. However, we can often see from what one is doing that that's something we may choose to adopt to see if it works for us, if it is a good fit for us. And that's the only way. You know, words don't teach, experiences do. And at this point in my life, you know, I've certainly had a lot of experiences. I'm in the process of writing my 5th book. I'm featured in 3 others for lots of interesting things I've done. So, you know, I've sat with the Aboriginal elders here within Australia. I've sat with the Hopi Indians out there in Arizona. I've been to the top of Machu Picchu. I've been up the top of Chichen Itza. You know, I'm interested in exploring and expanding myself through what other people have to share, as well as what I find out for myself. And a series of books have been a tremendous influence on my life. Even though I write a lot, I read a lot, and I enjoy reading these days. A lot of people, especially within the US, I know you like to do a lot of audio books because of, you know, not enough time or just the ease and the convenience for it, or even the literacy rates may not be as what some other countries may be. So in being such a strong influence, this series of books, and when I say series, it was 7 books, made up a series called The Life of the Masters of the Far East. And these books were written over 100 years ago now, and published over 100 years ago now, I should say. And Baird Spalding would be, I guess, one of the early founding fathers of reigniting the spiritual movement within the US, New York in particular. And his key message was that a little elevation in spirit leads to a lot of elevation in life. And I have to agree wholeheartedly with Baird. And I love his approach because he comes from a fairly scientific background in his research. And that's sort of my background as well, you know, in having been an investigator over 16 years, as well as including law enforcement. I test and examine what works and fits for myself and what rings as true. Now, some concepts, when we first hear them, they can sound really airy-fairy depending on where you're coming from or your life experience to date. Again, it's the experience that will prove the validity to things to you. So I'm going to share the top 3 lessons that I've found that I've shared with many people, and they've, you know, responded back with the amazing success that they've had within their life. And in 3 key words, this is not a case of you have to listen to Rosie for 50 minutes to get to the end, and it comes with some steak knives if you hold on, but wait, there's more. The top 3 lessons I've learnt for life is to laugh whenever we can, to let go of whatever we can, and to love all that we can. So that's my life lessons in a nutshell straight away that I've learnt from the masters of the Far East. Now let me expand on each of these. To laugh at everything doesn't mean to be a bully and to make fun of, use it to be cruel, jokes in jest or nastiness. Laughing is always about ourself. It's about finding a lighter perspective, an easier perspective, allowing ourselves to be more free. And if you understand that, I'll use the analogy of water, that water comes in different, it's the same substance, but it can be in totally different states. And those different states then present as a complete different reality. So, for example, water, when it's fluid and in flow, we all see it, and it's mobile, it's active, it's able to be one of the strongest stuff that we have on the planet. It wears away rock over much time, which we would consider to be much harder than the liquid. That same substance in a different state presents as a different reality. So, for example, when it is as gas, as steam, we don't see it. However, it doesn't mean it's no longer there. It can be in a different state again when it's solidified as ice. It's rock hard. It's stuck. It's not moving anywhere. It's not going anywhere. It's not free. It's actually very limited. That same substance is in a totally different state. And that different state then creates a different reality. Now, I wanted to present that analogy and concept to keep everyone on the same page as you're listening, because this is, for me, a challenging concept to convey. It's like sometimes you get stuff and you understand it, and then you go, oh my God, literally, oh my God, how on earth am I going to share this that others get what I'm getting and understanding? So if we think of us like water, well, considering over 70% of us is water and our brain 90%, we are very similar. We are the same substance, but in different states, we have different realities. And you know what state you're in when you wake up in the morning. You wake up in the morning and you get out of bed and you stub your toe on the corner of the bed. All of a sudden, that state has gone from barely awake to instantly grumpy and angry. Well, that's me I'm describing anyway. It's exactly how I am when I stub my toe. And then it seems to spiral into a whole series of ongoing effects after that moment, unless I've been able to laugh, unless I've been able to lighten the moment. And as one listener's asked, it's not so easy to do these things. What happens when life gets stuck? Well, that's exactly what my purpose today, that I've asked that I be able to share as clearly as possible exactly what we do when life gets stuck, because we are like walking, talking records. And for those that are the younger generation that may not know what records are, they were an album, a piece of a platinum, a black round circular disc that, unlike the CDs, was a lot bigger. And you sat it on a record player, and a needle would drop into the groove on the record, and it would instantly replay in sound exactly as it had been recorded onto it and imprinted into those grooves of the record. There was a digital record of exactly what had gone before. So we are like walking records of all that's been stored from life experiences of what's gone before. The difference is, what part are we putting that needle on? What groove are we stuck into? If it's one that we don't like, there's a little bit of work and effort. Now, other people would like to say, no, there's no work and effort. It depends how stuck we are. For some people, if you're not so stuck or attached to a particular situation, it's a lot easier, not so much work and effort. And we do get stuck in a groove. And depending, if you think of that groove like a life experience, like a habit, if you have done that groove, that habit, that experience that you're stuck on only once, twice, 3 times, maybe 10 times, it's not such a deep groove or rut, as I'll call it. And rut is another an acronym. And I use Aussie acronyms, the first big one being but, bloody useless thoughts, and the next one being rut, repeating those useless thoughts. So if you're stuck in a groove or stuck in a rut, it's because you're stuck in that but. You're repeating those bloody useless thoughts. And I call them useless thoughts because they're just creating a state that creates that reality for you and keeps you stuck in that space. You are that substance like water. You are able to change states at will. This is the dominion that was given to us, that it was man over matter. That's where getting caught up in materialism doesn't mean getting caught up in the fine, glossy, showy things, though that can be an aspect of it. It means getting caught up in the density, the heaviness, all that has become matter, all that has materialized, all that has been made real, tangible, solid, or what we call stuck. So how do we recognize we are in a rut? Well, I go for me by my feelings. Do I feel good? Do I feel bad? Do I not really feel at all? They're all indicators, and they're indicators of my state. Remember, the different states create a different reality. Our domain is not about changing the reality, because that's a lot of effort. You can get out there and try and change all the stuff, all that is material, all that has been manifest, all that is hard, dense, trapped, and slow. And often we're stuck in woe and want. That's all we're thinking of, what we're lacking. That is that space. That is where we are efforting. That's where everything is seen. Our power doesn't lie in trying to change all those effects, though that's what we're taught. We're taught that the trophies go to those that struggle the hardest. We are taught that, the biggest reward comes to, who persists and resists to the greatest extent. The ability to transition from what we see as real to what we currently are taught is unreal. And we're taught it's unreal because we can't see it, we can't touch it, we can't feel it. We are taught to rely on our senses alone, our 5 senses. And our 5 senses, people, are so limited. That's what's automatically limited us. It's automatically put us in a small box of experience, a small box of reality, that life does become challenging and difficult, and we do get stuck. So how do we change our thoughts? First off, we've got to have our ideal. We've got to know that we are that same substance like liquid, but I'll call that substance, instead of when we look at water and we can see it can be steam, it can be water, it can be ice, and many versions, varying versions in between, transitioning from those different states. Us too, but I'll call our substance spirit. So for use of a better word, spirit simply meaning energy we don't see, energy we don't touch, energy we may feel, but in a different way, the same as we feel water when it's at its vaporous level. We still can experience it. So for us to access more of our power is to understand and identify how we are coming more from our spirit, which is that different state. It's a lighter state, just like the steam. It's up there in the clouds. It's up there where the wonders of the world is, where it's all free, where it's moving fast, where it's unseen, and where it's effortless. This is where inspired action comes from. This is where you see the geniuses tap into and, in one day can rewrite content that changes our world. So spirit is our true nature, yet we're taught that what's natural we now look at as being unnatural. How can you believe in that crap? You can't see it. Prove it to me. It's like nothing else is being proved. What we're proving is effects. There's a big difference between effects and the cause of those effects. And understanding that there is a cause, that there are effects. All that is material is effects. So, for example, I watched a movie a long time ago, and it was Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin. Yes, I know I'm showing my age again. Either way, Jerry Lewis was hilarious in this movie, and they're in a submarine submerged underwater. And in this scene, Jerry Lewis is walking past a closed hallway, and as he walks past this closed hallway, all of a sudden a spurt of water is coming out the side into the hallway of this submarine. Now, Jerry Lewis presents in this movie as not a very smart character, and he's hilarious in his antics, but he knows, even though he's not that smart, that water in a submarine that's submerged in the water is not a good sign. So he's looking around for a solution to his problem, this effect that's presented right in front of his face, and he's the only one there to deal with this problem. So he has to find a solution. He can't just walk past and ignore it, because let's face it, it could create a bigger problem for everybody. So his only solution he finds is what he's got at hand. So he uses his finger. He sticks his finger into this hole and he's plugged it up in the submarine. But guess what? Now he's stuck. He's become the solution to that problem, but he's used a small part of himself, but that small part of himself is attached to all of himself. So all of him has become stuck in that moment, in that situation, because that is what he saw as the only answer to dealing with this effect. Well, lo and behold, as he's standing there plugging this hole up and pondering his predicament, another hole pops forth right in front of his face, and he's like looking around desperately for someone else to come along and relieve him of being the solution of this problem. There's no one else coming along, so Jerry uses all that he has, which is a finger from another hand. And as it continues on, as he plugs a hole up with one of his appendages, his fingers in this case, another hole would burst forth, and he would stick his toe over it, another hole would burst forth, and he'd stick his knee over it, another hole would burst forth, and he's sticking all his fingers on it, now he's sticking his nose on it. He's using absolutely everything he has of himself in order to save this submarine, knowing that water coming in, and he's dealing with the multitude of effects, used all of himself up. Now he is totally stuck, and there's still no one else there to help him. Now, many people live their lives like this. They deal with one effect after another effect, after another effect, after another effect, on top of another and another and another and another, till they feel, oh my God, there's absolutely nothing left for me to use. You know, I'm about to get sort of wiped out. And it can feel like life is drowning us. So this is the epiphany moment where Dean Martin walks into the scene. And as he walks through the doorway and he sees Jerry Lewis in his situation, completely stuck with all of his appendages filling up or plugging up little holes in the wall, he starts laughing at Jerry in his circumstance and walks over to this big wheel that is on the wall, and he simply starts turning this big wheel. Now, what this wheel does, it simply closes off a gate that we don't see. It's out of view from where Jerry and Dean are, but it was open to the ocean, and that's what was letting water into the submarine. So often our answers and solutions to our problems may be out of view. However, if we find the cause and deal directly with the cause, it is so much easier than trying to spread ourselves thin, which we do in our hectic, busy, stressed lives, dealing with the multitude of effects. So these effects, the first opportunity to identify that they're all happening is when we're so stressed out. And that's, take a big breath. Take a big breath and just slow yourself down. So then laugh. Use that top lesson I've learnt for life. And it's not laugh out of delirium as in, oh my God, what have I got myself into now? Or I've truly lost the plot. I've lost my mind. It is laugh to lighten it up. We are changing states. You cannot solve a problem with the same mind that is perpetuating that problem. Albert Einstein, one of the smartest men of the last century, taught us that. So in order to be a solution, we are required to move our states. And that's exactly it. What if we didn't know about the wheel to turn? This is where I'm here to share that the wheel to turn is within your own spirit. You are never left without answers, without solutions, without access to direct cause. Every single person walking, breathing on this planet, irrespective of who they are, has a direct dial up to that wheel to turn, to that cause, and that's that elevation in spirit. And for some of us, we can only do it incrementally. Others of us, we can do it much more. It's not a case of one person being better than another or greater than another. Not at all. It is simply what we have entrained and educated and indoctrinated ourselves to understand. So as we laugh, we lighten up. And you can think about, it might be, the example of holding a balloon. If you fill that balloon up with more light stuff, which is air, it can actually carry a greater load. And that's like ourselves. We carry this load. We carry that record of all the experiences that has come before, all the negative effects and events that have transpired in our lives. And we just play that, wheel again. We put that needle down into that groove exactly where we left off on the same topic. So I had to laugh just recently. I saw on television a program here called Married at First Sight, and I got caught up watching it. And as much as I don't like to acknowledge it, I don't normally watch reality television. However, I did because I wanted to see how they were playing up the drama. And I thought that's what people are attracted to. We've been indoctrinated to do a spin on things, to amp up the drama, to make it so suspenseful and spellbinding, and people love talking problems. However, we're unaware that this is cause. This is not an elevation in spirit. This is a depression in spirit. And as we do a depression in spirit, because spirit doesn't see problems, spirit doesn't see all these negative things, it sees the purity. It sees what we have actually access to at all times. It's us who are blind, us who have the blinkers on, who can't see. And it's us who are educating others through best intention, mind you, exactly the same. So understanding that our cause may be in what we call the unseen. It's not seen already. If it were, we wouldn't have the problem. So it's a reversal. We're understanding that imagining things is our access to that invisible to make it visible. Understanding that we have that opportunity to lighten ourselves up at any time by seeking ways to laugh. Laughing is lightening up. Laughing is a release. It's like the valve on a kettle. It just lets some of what's built up get out. And as it gets out, it lightens the load. The other lesson for life is that ability to let go. Because if you want to stay holding on to those problems and those difficulties and those challenges, or you want to stay holding on to what is your heritage, what is your culture, what is your discipline, what is your rituals, what is your practice, anything that is challenging and difficult and doesn't add on to you having a lighter state, that is your choice, your free will. However, light is the fastest thing that we have here on the planet. There is absolutely nothing that goes at the speed of light. Light, the word itself, carries the actual meaning of that it is not hampered, it is not hindered, it is free, it is unlimited, it is fast. That is how life results transition when we're able to incorporate, which means we're corporeal beings. So when we, from the inside, incorporate, include more aspects of light in our life by letting go of what's heavy, what's hard, what's dense, what creates the shadows, what is the difficulty. As we let go, the talking about it, the rehashing it, the reliving it, that record playing over and over and over. Each individual, we only have dominion in our own mental space and our own emotional space of what we keep replaying. That's our power, and that's fabulous because we are the ones that then choose a new record. How do you choose a record? You choose what is your ideal. So now, this is where words are very important because we've been taught to make idols idols of people who are masters that we recognize as masters, idols of statues or emblems or motifs, or idols of doing particular rituals in a particular way. The message got lost in the translation. It wasn't about idols. It was about living ideals. So those ideals of your virtues, there is a sacred law that you will lose that which you seek for selfish gain. So there are people in the world that have been educated or taught that the only way to get something is to take from another. However, the law is whatever you take from another, you've lost the moment you've taken it. You've lost it as a right for yourself. The moment you give to another, that which you give is what you get. It's your ability to receive. Your demonstration of giving it is a demonstration loud and clear that you know you have so much more of it, because we give what we've got. If we haven't got it, we can't give it. These are the Masters of the Far East, in these series of 6 books that, as I mentioned, was written over 100 years ago. They use a lot of old-time language. And the old-time language, because I'm a former police officer, I pay attention to words and details and language in order to assist and get the purity of the content. And to give, I'm going to read a portion that is an example so that you can understand what it is that I'm sharing here. I'm just seeing the section that I wanted to read from, so that we're aware that, you know, this is coming forward now. So the more people that learn to play in this expansive state by laughing and lightening up, by letting go what no longer serves them, and then the final lesson, having that love for all, being inclusive for all, starting with self, that success is personal. However, this is what's coming forward. So in spite of the delusion-bound multitude, their clinging hands and cringing attitude, a greater and more noble vista of the expanding horizon of God, the Christ of man, the Christ of God, of self, and death itself is looming, and another cycle of spirit is dawning for the whole world. Another age of the crystal race is coming up out of the maelstrom. Whenever a people or nation think of God as absolute, that people or nation is God. So that is what I demonstrated as in incorporating that ideal. For God is established onto them. As they love, worship, and reverence that ideal, they do become God. In the fullness of time, they've reached their heritage, that which was first, and is established in spirit. Whenever an individual thinks of God, he is God. God is established onto him. Breathe life into humanity. It means the same, God. In this greater understanding of cosmic revelation, men find God the same as God was before human consciousness began to manifest. The same yesterday, today, and forever. So there is slowly rising from the ashes of orthodoxy the actual temple, not made by hands, eternal in heaven, in man. A great new race of thinkers is coming to the fore with Herculean strides. Soon the tides will surge over the earth to sweep away the debris of delusion which has been strewn over the paths of those who are struggling along under the load of evolution. The work is already accomplished. Hundreds of millions are re-released with their heart, soul, body, and instinct free. They are the throbbing pulse of an unborn race that is again heir to the ages. I see them stepping across the ages, walking hand in hand with God. Great waves of wisdom flood toward them from the eternal shores of the infinite. Now, I read a segment only because people will hear a certain word and already come up with their meaning. And that's what I've found in reading a lot of information, not from these books, but a lot of religious content, is that we put our own meaning onto words. We idolize the word Christ, or we idolize the word God. We idolize the word, be it Buddha or insert whoever. That was never the Master's intention. The Master's was that as we do, we are demonstrating what is within your dominion to do. However, we've been taught that what's natural, now we deem it as unnatural. And the only way that we do let go is by, first off, understanding that we are far more than what we can see. We are far more than what we can touch, smell, see, experience. We are far more than what our five senses tell us. That level of materiality of what's been made real, what is man-made, is what keeps us stuck in woe and want. Our senses delude us into beliefs of what's real and what's not. Just take, for example, hypnosis. Under hypnosis, a person can be told that they're eating marshmallows whilst they're actually sitting there eating boiled eggs. Now, we know physically that there's a big difference between the taste of boiled eggs and the taste of marshmallows. Yet under hypnosis, the person goes through a reality of eating marshmallows. So again, they've changed the state. It's changed their reality as they perceive it. And I thought of that this morning just as I was eating a peach, and I really like the sweet peaches. And at this point in time, I seem to have bought a box of peaches that aren't so sweet. I call them rather sour, actually. And as I bit into the peach, expecting a sweet taste, and I had a sour taste, I was thinking to myself, okay, this is an experience I'm not really wanting. It's a sour taste in my mouth. And I thought, here I am sharing with others about changing your states and changing our reality. And the funny content that I got in my head after that was that my body doesn't know any difference. My body is still going through the same reality of eating a peach. It's absorbing what nutrients there are from the peach. It's going to send it through my digestive system, exactly the same, whether it's sweet or whether it's sour. And again, that's like many of us with our life experiences. We are the ones that are flipping the switch and determining, no, I don't like sour anymore. I can have the experience either way. I can have this easy or hard. I can have this sweet or sour. And that's where it was a small epiphany whilst eating a peach. And that's how many of us get our epiphanies, sitting in the park, watching the squirrels, watching babies play together. We discover many of these life lessons, that the power is always within our own hands. It's within our own heads, with our thoughts. But most importantly, it's within our own hearts. And that is, as we learn to love, we learn to lighten up. And as we learn to love, that's how we learn to let go and we learn to laugh. Because sometimes circumstances aren't ones that we find we can laugh at. A friend recently was posting online how they'd lost their child. The drama was amped right up. Lost their child, lost their baby. World would never be the same. How tragically affected they were. And so many people, volumes of people were responding back. Now, this person sadly had lost their cat. However, they didn't use the word cat anywhere through it. It's just those of us that knew the person knew it was their cat that they were talking about. So all these other people are thinking that, this poor person, has lost his child at a very young age and through deliberate act of neglect on behalf of this individual. And I thought, again, that was the drama. They knew if they used the word cat, there wouldn't be as much attention and sympathy if they'd use the word their baby, their child. We'll have people around us that communicate the same way. Observe within ourselves. We can dial up the appreciation or we can dial up the drama. One is sweet, one is sour. These are just processes, moment by moment, that we can adopt to make changes within our life. We have free will. These lessons that came through from the masters was to demonstrate that absolutely even the most wild, out there, wackiest, craziest notions and ideas is completely valid. Everything virtual can be made real. Everything that is real was once virtual. So the more we learn to play in that virtual state, and the advent of modern technology helps us that way, because we now have an analogy that we can understand. We can see how radio waves really do exist. We can see how microwaves really do exist. They're not some nut job in a crazy place talking about this, though that's exactly where the inventor originally found himself when he first did start talking about it. So again, don't get caught up with the people who want to poo-poo or, talk you down on living your ideal. So again, the importance is not on the idol, It is on the ideal. What does your ideal life look like? Do you even know that? Do you have the answer to that? If we're not able to write it, we're not in a position to receive it. If we can't name it, we can't claim it. So the starting point, the messages from the masters, is to know what your ideal is. Your ideal for yourself is also your ideal for others. So if you're poo-pooing others in their circumstances and putting down, like, for example, I know some people that put down a lot of rich people. Now, again, it's not to do with the materiality. It is to do with the ideal of that. If that is used and it empowers you to be free and unlimited and fast and do things in an effortless fashion, then in that aspect, it's incorporating more spirit into your life. You've lightened up life. Now, again, this conversation that I'm having now is not to say, oh, these people must be really spiritual and therefore these people that are doing it tough are really unspiritual. Nothing of the sort. And that comparison is what drives people crazy. Who of us is possibly here to say where someone is at in compared to another person? What absolute hogwash. What is relevant is where are you at compared with you? That's it. That's where our dominion and experience lays. What if, and I'm just going to read some questions, what if we don't know what life is to be like for us, and do we write our ideal, or are things written for us? Well, I believe that we are never left alone. So we know what, in a sense, there are aspects of life we want for us, not the material possessions we'll have, but the virtues, the feeling state of how it will be. Like for me, I love easy, I love effortless, I love enjoyable, I love excitement, I love interesting, I love intriguing. These are all key words. It's not a particular tangible thing that I hold that I'm saying that I love. My ideal states represent any of those. So if I have communication with the person, I find that communication is easy and enjoyable because that's what I pay attention to. They're my ideals. And the things that aren't what I enjoy, I let go of. It's like some people cause happiness wherever they go, others whenever they go. And we've all met some of those. So our ideals is what we get clarity on. You know, peace is another important aspect for me. It doesn't mean that I'm always in a peaceful environment. It means when I'm in that environment, I pay attention to the things within myself that are at peace. I seek it out. Whatever you seek is what you will find. Remember, these states, we don't originally see it. When water is changing state and going to become a gas, we don't see it's about to transition. We still see things as they are, just the water. So the same with our reality. Once we change our state, our present reality may not change instantaneously to mimic us. When we're at faster and faster vibratory patterns, yes, it certainly does. So I would suggest getting clarity for yourself first, because that is one thing that the masters reiterated, was our own clarity within ourselves of what is our priority in living this life. If your priority in living this life is just to rip other people off and get what you can get, well, then that law that you will lose that which you seek for selfish gain will be fulfilled. There's no escaping it. There was one gentleman over here, Ed Burton, who ran a lot of real estate programs, how to get rich quick schemes. And at the time I'd been interested in purchasing a property, and I went along and paid a large sum of money to attend. And I noted in the auditorium on losing my voice, in the auditorium on that occasion, he would have made $1 million just on that weekend. However, what he was sharing was how to take advantage of people, how to rip people off, how to do it under the provisions of the law and the tax authority, how to set up offshore accounts, etc. I didn't get ripped off. However, what I found it as an interesting educational experience, because I was observing people racing up at the brakes that were pushing and shoving each other to get first in line to pay huge sums of money to buy into his courses and programs of how to do this. Yet the man himself stood in front of us, supported by a chair. His body was crippled. It wasn't even able to tolerate any longer the words that were coming out of his mouth. It had reached that point that his body was no longer going to stand for him through what he was doing. And yet this was a person that people wanted to be like. It blew my brain in that moment of thinking, wow, how is it that people cannot see? And again, I'm learning and developing and understanding that not everyone thinks as I do. Not everyone understands as I do. The base level is that your thoughts create your reality. Your virtues, your ideals is what you are seeking and what you will be finding. If you haven't set them, they've been set for you. They exist for you already. And it may be by those that had the best interest at the time when you were younger, may have served you then, it may not serve you now. We are all those walking records. We get the opportunity to change what's playing. That's our power. And as I said, the lessons that I've learned and being around a lot of elderly people at the close of their lives as well, you know, we've read many articles or books that are written about elderly people that share, you know, if they had their life as a do-over, what would be the important things that they would do. And what they would always speak about was not spend more time at the office, not wish they'd made more money, not regret anything they'd ever lost. What they always wanted more of is time with those that they loved. Love is the one thing that lightens us all up. It is for ourselves, that respect, that we don't put ourselves, or I'll take away that don't, say that we instead choose to put ourselves in environments that empower, nurture and support us, as opposed to other environments that take away from us. Now, some people might be thinking, oh, Rose, God, I'm going to a job at work that I really can't stand. Well, what are the things that you do enjoy of it? There's always a flip side to every attitude. Every state has another state. It's up to you to be able to laugh, to be able to play with it, to be able to let go what's difficult or dark or challenging about it, and find something to love about it. As I said, some people, you know, we love to see, and other people we love to see them go. Again, it's finding your way of how you utilize in a light-hearted fashion what's going to work for you within your own life. Now, every week I've always drawn from the Abraham and Esther Hicks deck, and I normally draw one card, but today I drew two because I use the key words that for me I'd learnt. Some people would say go within to get your answers, and I think, well, that's well and good for them, but where's within? Give me a roadmap. Other people, it's go within means be by yourself. Well, we didn't come to planet Earth in a sense to be in isolation. You know, we're one cell that divided and multiplied, that one cell now become you or myself or any other individual sitting there now listening to this recording. So that one is phenomenal. Go without is some other people's mentality for, you know, spiritual elevation. It's not the materiality. It's not those things that's the issue. It's being caught up in it. It's going on that record and being stuck in it that is the issue. For some people, it's instead of go within or go without, it's, you know, just go already, move on, keep moving, move on. I'm moving on. And again, if we've left it in a bad place and state, it's ready to be picked back up exactly as we left it. Things don't get tidied up on our own. That's just what, you know, we call ignoring or ignorance, because we come right back to it exactly where it is and as it was. And if it happens to be a McDonald's hamburger, it'll be the same state 20 years from now as it was when it was first created, thanks to preservatives. Man has the ability to make things that are stale and tired and old appear as if it's fresh and new and somehow good for you. We have been trained that unnatural is now what's natural. So here's my opportunity to be a pattern interrupt in what's been going on in your life, that you now come back to your natural state, which is that you are an unstoppable force. There are absolutely no limits to you, that you are free and fast and fabulous in all aspects if you will allow yourself. And what can we do to know what we are here to do? The key message I've been told again and again of what we're here to do is to enjoy, and that is to embody joy. That is to share joy. That is what that appreciation is. And the reason that I drew two cards that I mentioned earlier is because one was about appreciation and gratitude, that they're different vibrational states, because I'd written down, to go with God, grace, and gratitude. Go great. That's a divine heritage. And then I picked the card demonstrating the difference between gratitude and appreciation. When we talk about gratitude, often we're still looking at a difficulty that we've overcome. So it still incorporates or has within it the kernel or seed or nut, if you will, of that struggle that preceded it. Whereas when we talk about appreciating, there is no negative anywhere whatsoever in that vibration. We talk about money appreciating. It's increasing in value. We talk about what we're appreciating. It's automatically increased in value. And this is where we find the values in things, by what we appreciate, by giving our attention to it. As we give our attention to it, we're saying, that's for me. If that happens to be problems and difficulty, well, the message received the same. So how do we increase in value? I believe we're always of the highest value. It is removing our blinkers and shutters that we have to not acknowledging and recognizing this inherent value that we all have. So start paying attention to the things that you love, to the things that make you laugh, to the things that make you feel lighter. They're all the things, like when we eat nutritious food, our body responds immediately. It recognizes we have a value for what's going inside of ourselves. As soon as we eat crap food, our body recognizes that too, and it instantly gives us feedback. It gives us messages. We don't feel so good, and over time, we create conditions that are absolutely lousy. So, we're always listening. We're always on. There is no off switch. So there is no increasing our value. Our value is at the highest set point. Observation of your value is what we increase. So take the opportunity, everything that crosses your path today that you see that puts a smile on your dial, that is an opportunity to go, oh, isn't that amazing? Human beings created that street light. Isn't that incredible that this window, that there's a person that made that? I wonder what that person's story is. Maybe they had 30 years as a window builder, or maybe it was their first day in the job. There is so much information behind everything that crosses our path if we would but take a moment to appreciate and recognize all what's gone before. And I've been asked, what do you think of Japanese food? I love Japanese food. However, I love all food, except for maybe McDonald's. And I don't expect a sponsorship deal from them anytime soon. Anyway, back onto my card. I am the attractor of my every experience. You are meant to live as expansive, exhilarating, good feeling experience. So there's your answer of your life purpose. It was your plan when you made the decision to become focused in your physical body in this time-space reality. You were born knowing that you are a powerful being, that you are good, that you are the creation of your experience, and that the law of attraction, which is the essence of that which is like unto itself is drawn, or in other words, like attracts like, is the basis of the universe. And you knew it would serve you well, and so it has. So pay attention to what you want more of in your life, because that is what is appreciating. That is what appreciating means, becoming more of. So use your focus, fine-tune it, set it specifically and selectively to all that is wanted. What is unwanted in your reality, remember, is the many effects. Like poor old Jerry Lewis got worn out, caught up, and totally stuck in his reality because he didn't look any further. Dean Martin, you don't even bother with the effects, go straight to the cause. So we've got the opportunity now to go straight to our cause, which is being aware that we are spirit. We are that same substance. We are of God. Whichever God you want to name, what you want to believe on, what you want to call that energy, that same substance is in all of us and absolutely everything else, and you have divine access and direct access at all times. No one comes between it and you except for you. So I'd like to thank my listeners. What if we are not really good? What if fueled by evil? And if you can't find the cause? Well, I'm going to have to address that on another episode. You've been listening to Rosie Pekar on Until Now. Look forward to talking to you all next week. Thanks for joining me.